Fleet Commander Draxul stood on the bridge of the Xel'Karn Flagship Void Dominator, his forearms gripping the command console as he surveyed the tactical display. The holographic projection showed the culmination of the greatest military operation in the galactic hegemon's 10,000-year history. 7,000 warships arranged in a perfect sphere around a single, unremarkable yellow star system. Status report, Draxul's gravelly voice demanded. Sub-Commander Thrax approached, her carapace gleaming under the ship's ambient lighting. The blockade is complete, Commander. Every hyperlane is covered. No vessel can enter or leave the Sol system without our knowledge. Draxul's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. For too long, the bipedal mammals called humans had been a thorn in the hegemon's side. Despite controlling only a single star system, they had repeatedly refused integration into the hegemony, claiming sovereignty and independence. Concepts the Xel'Karn found not just offensive but dangerous. And the human defensive capabilities, Draxul inquired. Minimal, Pritt replied, displaying a secondary hologram. They have a small fleet of primitive vessels concentrated around their homeworld and colonies on Mars and Europa. Our intelligence suggests their most advanced weapons are fusion-based and kinetic. Nothing that could penetrate our quantum shields. Draxul had studied the humans extensively. They were young to the galactic stage, barely 3 centuries since they'd achieved faster-than-light travel. By all logic, they should have been easy to assimilate like the hundreds of species before them. Yet somehow, they had rebuffed diplomatic envoys, economic pressure, and even covert operations. Begin the broadcast, Draxul ordered. Across the vast fleet, transmitters powered up, directing a unified message toward Earth and its colonies. Draxul's image would now be appearing on every communication device in the Sol system. People of Earth, he began his translator converting his clicks and whistles into human language. I am Fleet Commander Draxul of the Xel'Karn hegemony. Your system is now completely surrounded by the most powerful armada ever assembled. Your situation is hopeless. He paused for dramatic effect, a technique he learned from studying human entertainment broadcasts. For too long you have rejected the prosperity and protection of the hegemony. Your continued independence threatens the stability of this sector. You have 24 Earth hours to surrender unconditionally. Your leadership will transfer all military and governmental authority to hegemony representatives. Your resources will be cataloged and appropriated for the greater good. Your people will be integrated into our labor distribution systems. Draxul leaned forward, his compound eyes glittering. Resistance is not merely futile. It is irrational. Our fleet outnumbers yours 7,000 to 1. Our technology outclasses yours by millennia. Should you choose to fight, we will not hesitate to reduce your habitable worlds to ash. As the transmission ended, Draxul turned to his war council. Prepare invasion forces. The humans are emotional and prideful, but they are not stupid. They will see the mathematics of the situation and surrender. Chief Strategist Forex, the oldest Xel'Karn on the bridge, clicked his mandibles nervously. Commander, our intelligence on humans suggests they sometimes act against self-interest when cornered. All species say they value freedom until the cost becomes too high. Draxul dismissed the concern with a wave of his upper right appendage. Besides, what could they possibly do? We have them completely surrounded. On the tactical display, the 7,000 ships of the hegemony fleet glowed like a perfect sphere of deadly stars, each one capable of sterilizing a continent. At the center, the tiny blue dot of Earth seemed impossibly insignificant. The countdown to humanity's surrender began. Admiral Tenzin Dorji of the United Earth Defense Force stood in the war room beneath the Rocky Mountains, surrounded by the highest-ranking military and political leaders of humanity. The holographic display in the center showed the same image visible from every observatory in the system. Thousands of alien warships, each larger than the biggest human vessel, arranged in an inescapable blockade. They've sealed every approach vector, General Kesonga said, her fingers tracing potential routes through the Xel'Karn formation. No conventional ship could break through that screen. President Octavio Reyes, his face grim, addressed the room. Admiral Dorji, give me options. Tenzin moved to the center of the room. At 62, he was one of the most experienced officers in the UEDF, a veteran of the Mars Rebellion and the Europa crisis. But nothing in human history compared to the threat they now faced. Mr. President, their technological advantage is significant but not insurmountable. Remember, we've been expecting this day for decades. He gestured, and the hologram changed to show a series of orbital platforms surrounding Earth, Mars, and Jupiter's moons. Project Prometheus is ready for deployment. A murmur ran through the assembled leaders. Project Prometheus had consumed nearly 15% of Earth's GDP for the past 20 years. A massive investment in defensive technology developed in secret facilities throughout the solar system. We never thought we'd need to activate all arrays simultaneously. Dr. Kalindi Sharma, the project's chief scientist, said quietly. The power requirements are extreme. Will it work? The president asked bluntly. Dr. Sharma exchanged glances with Admiral Dorji before answering. In theory, yes, but we've never tested the system at full capacity, and there's a significant risk of cascading failures in our power grid. And if we don't try, asked the Martian colonial representative. Tenzin answered this time. Then we become slaves to an empire that has subjugated hundreds of species across the galaxy. The Xel'Karn don't just conquer, they absorb. Their assimilation protocols would erase human culture within a generation. President Reyes stood up. The weight of humanity's future visibly pressed on his shoulders. Send our response to the Xel'Karn commander. 20 minutes later, Fleet Commander Draxul received the human transmission. To his surprise, it was brief, just 3 words from President Reyes. Humanity declines. Prepare. They're being dramatic, Draxul told his officers dismissively. Probably a psychological tactic to buy time. Subcommander Thrix wasn't convinced. Our sensors are detecting unusual energy buildups across their system. Commander. Power signatures unlike anything in our database. Probably civilian fusion reactors being diverted to their military. Draxul said, it won't matter, begin the first phase of the attack. Target their orbital defenses and communication arrays. Throughout the fleet, weapon systems charged. Thousands of graviton lances, capable of piercing planetary crusts, oriented toward human military installations. Draxul felt a moment's regret. Such destruction was wasteful, but sometimes necessary to establish dominance. All ships, commence firing, he ordered. But as the command transmitted across the fleet, sensors began screaming alerts. Around Earth, Mars, and the major moons of Jupiter, strange devices were powering up. Hundreds of them, previously camouflaged as ordinary satellites or defense platforms. Commander, Frigg's voice had risen an octave. The humans are generating some kind of energy field. Before Draxul could respond, space itself seemed to warp around the human worlds. The attacks of the nearest Xel'Karn ships simply vanished, absorbed into rippling barriers of blue-white energy. Impossible, Draxul whispered. Dr. Kalindi Sharma stood in the central control chamber of Prometheus Alpha, the largest of Earth's defensive arrays. Around her, engineers and technicians worked frantically to stabilize the system as it drew unprecedented amounts of power from fusion plants worldwide. Field integrity at 87% and holding, called out Lieutenant Commander Nazari. The Xel'Karn weapons are being successfully absorbed. Kalindi allowed herself a moment of professional pride. 20 years of theoretical work, simulation, and prototype testing were paying off. The Prometheus shields, based on principles of zero-point energy manipulation, were functioning exactly as designed, creating defensive barriers that didn't just block attacks, but converted their energy to strengthen the shield itself. What about Mars? She asked. Prometheus Beta is stable at 79%, came the response. Europa and Ganymede arrays reporting similar numbers. On the main view screen, they could see the Xel'Karn fleet adjusting, concentrating fire on specific points in the defensive grid. The shields flickered but held. They're probing for weaknesses, Admiral Dorji noted, joining Kalindi at the central console. Classic tactical approach. But they don't understand what they're dealing with. Kalindi nodded. The more energy they direct at us, the stronger the shields become. It's like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. In orbit above them, the Prometheus arrays glowed with increasing intensity as they absorbed and redistributed the alien attack. What the gal learned to know was each shield generator contained specialized quantum processors designed to analyze enemy weapons technology in real time. We're getting excellent data on their attack patterns and energy signatures, Kalindi reported to the president through a secure channel. Phase 1 is complete. We can move to Phase 2 whenever you're ready. President Reyes, speaking from the secure bunker beneath New Geneva, gave the authorization. Proceed, Doctor. God help us all. Across the solar system, secondary systems within the Prometheus arrays activated. The absorbed energy, rather than being held indefinitely in the defensive barriers, began channeling into massive emitter arrays. In the depths of space, Fleet Commander Draxel was growing increasingly frustrated. Despite bringing more ships into firing position, the human defenses showed no signs of weakening. Increase power to all forward batteries, he ordered. Concentrate fire on their orbital platforms. Commander, strategist Vorax interjected, perhaps we should reassess. These defenses employ technology we've never encountered before. They're just shields, Draxel snapped. Every shield has a breaking point. Find it. But at that moment, the tactical officer cried out in alarm. Energy spike, massive buildup detected across the human defensive grid. On the display, the blue-white shield surrounding Earth and its colonies suddenly pulsed with blending intensity. Then, without warning, hundreds of coherent energy beams lanced outward from the Prometheus arrays, each one targeting a Xel'Karn vessel with unerring precision. Draxel watched in horror as the first wave of beams struck his fleet. Ships that had withstood bombardments from multiple alien civilizations simply disintegrated, their quantum shields overwhelmed by weapons utilizing their own energy against them. Evasive maneuvers, he bellowed. All ships, retreat to minimum safe distance. But the human counterattack continued relentlessly. The Prometheus arrays, having analyzed Xel'Karn shield frequencies, were transmitting beams specifically calibrated to penetrate their defenses. Within minutes, over 800 Xel'Karn warships had been destroyed. The perfect sphere of the blockade began to fragment as surviving vessels attempted to regroup. Draxel stared at the tactical display in disbelief. How could this be happening? How have the primitive humans developed such devastating technology in secret? Commander, Subcommander Thrix said quietly, we should consider withdrawal to regroup and analyze this new threat. For the first time in his long career, Draxel felt the cold stain of uncertainty. The humans had been ready for them. Somehow, they had anticipated this attack and prepared accordingly. Send word to the Hegemony Council, he ordered grimly. The subjugation of Earth they require. Reconsideration. Captain Lena Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, the newest battlecruiser in Earth's modest fleet. Around her, crew members monitored systems as the ship accelerated away from Mars' orbital dock, joining dozens of other vessels converging into attack formation. All ships reporting ready, Captain. Her XO, Commander Hiroki announced. Task Force Spear is assembled. Lena studied the tactical display. While the Prometheus arrays had devastated the front lines of the Xel'Karn blockade, thousands of enemy ships remained. But they were disorganized now, their perfect formation shattered by the unexpected human counterattack. The window won't stay open long, Lena told her crew. Once they regroup, they'll adapt their shields to our weapons. We need to strike hard and fast. The plan was audacious. While the Prometheus arrays kept the main Xel'Karn fleet occupied, Task Force Spear would execute a precision strike against the enemy command ships, which intelligence had identified based on communication patterns. All ships, engage quantum drive on my mark, Lena ordered. The Defiance hummed as its experimental propulsion system charged. Unlike conventional human FTL drives, the quantum drive didn't move through space. It temporarily shifted the ship to an adjacent dimensional plane before reappearing at the target coordinates. 3, 2, 1, mark. The Defiance and its sister ships vanished in flashes of brilliant light, bypassing the chaotic battlefield entirely. When they reappeared, they were in the midst of the Xel'Karn command group, 30 heavy cruisers surrounding the massive flagship Void Dominator. They detected us, Hiroki reported as alarms blared across the enemy fleet. Their weapons are powering up. Launch Nova missiles, all tubes, Lena commanded. Target their command and communication arrays. From the Defiance and its companions, hundreds of sleek missiles accelerated toward the Xel'Karn vessels. These weren't conventional explosives, but carried miniaturized versions of the same energy absorption technology as the Prometheus arrays. On the bridge of the Void Dominator, Draxel was frantically trying to restore order to his scattered fleet when new alerts sounded. Human vessels, Frick shouted. They've appeared inside our defensive perimeter. Impossible, Draxel said for the second time that day. No known species has teleportation technology of that range. But the evidence was undeniable. Smaller than his command ships but moving with incredible agility, the human vessels were launching what appeared to be primitive missiles. Intercept those projectiles, he ordered. All point defense systems, fire. The Xel'Karn ships responded, energy beams lashing out to destroy the incoming missiles. But when struck, The Nova missiles didn't explode. Instead, they absorbed the defensive fire, growing brighter until they impacted against the hulls of the alien vessels. Upon contact, each missile released its stored energy in a focused burst that bypassed shields entirely, directly affecting the ship's systems. Communication arrays failed. Weapon systems went offline. Propulsion sputtered and died. Within minutes, the entire Xel'Karn command group was effectively neutralized, not destroyed but unable to fight or coordinate the rest of the fleet. Captain Okonkwo opened a channel to the Void Dominator. "Fleet Commander Draxul," she said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her. "This is Captain Lena Okonkwo of the United Earth Defense Force. Your command ships are disabled and your fleet is in disarray. I suggest you consider your options carefully." On his crippled flagship, Draxul stared at the human captain's image on his damaged view screen. He had underestimated these mammals catastrophically. Somehow, they had developed technologies that the hegemon's best scientists had deemed theoretical at best, impossible at worst. "What are your terms?" he asked, the words bitter in his mouth. Lena's expression remained impassive. "Unconditional withdrawal from the Sol system, a formal recognition of human sovereignty, and immediately cessation of all hegemony operations within 50 light-years of Earth." Draxul's mandibles clicked in agitation. "And if I refuse, then we continue this demonstration," Lena replied coolly. "The choice is yours, Commander. But I should inform you that we've already transmitted the specifications of our defensive technology to every species subjugated by the hegemony. I imagine some of them will be quite interested in regaining their independence." In the aftermath of the battle, a delegation of Xel'Karn officials was escorted to Earth for formal negotiations. Sub-Commander Thrix, representing the incapacitated Draxul, found herself in a sterile conference room in the United Earth Government Complex in New Geneva. Across the table sat President Reyes, Admiral Dorji, Dr. Sharma, and a small team of human diplomats and scientists. The contrast between species couldn't have been more stark. The insectoid Xel'Karn with their chitinous exoskeletons and compound eyes, facing the soft-skinned mammals whose appearance had led the hegemony to fatally underestimate them. "We have questions," Frix began, her translator converting her speech to human language. "Your technological capabilities far exceed our intelligence assessments. How is this possible?" Dr. Sharma smiled thinly. "You monitored our official research channels, observed our public infrastructure, and assumed you had the complete picture. We'd known about the hegemony for decades," Admiral Dorji added. "Your attempts at covert surveillance weren't as subtle as you believed." President Reyes leaned forward. "From the moment we detected your first probes in our system, humanity began preparing. We established visible research programs in conventional technologies while diverting significant resources to classified projects, like Prometheus." Frix's mandibles clicked, and what humans had learned was an expression of distress. "But the resource allocation required for such development, our economic models indicated." "Your models failed to account for human determination," interrupted Dr. Sharma. "When faced with an existential threat, we're capable of extraordinary focus and cooperation." The conversation continued for hours as the humans revealed select details about their defensive capabilities. They explained how they had detected weaknesses in Xel'Karn quantum shield technology years ago by analyzing debris from lost exploration ships that had actually been captured and studied in secret facilities throughout the Sol system. "There's something else you should understand," Admiral Dorji said as the meeting concluded. "What you witnessed was our defensive capability. We chose not to deploy our offensive weapons." "What do you mean?" Frix asked, a new note of alarm in her voice. President Reyes exchanged glances with his advisors before responding. "The Prometheus arrays could have been calibrated differently. Instead of disabling your ships, we could have destroyed your entire fleet. That was not our goal." Back on the damaged flagship Void Dominator, Fleet Commander Draxul reviewed the preliminary terms the humans had offered. They were surprisingly lenient. No reparations demanded, no territorial concessions, simply recognition of human sovereignty and a mutual non-aggression pact. "They could have annihilated us," the strategist Forex observed. "Why such restraint?" Draxul had been pondering the same question. "Perhaps they are wiser than we assumed, or perhaps this is merely the opening move in a longer game." A communication alert sounded, indicating an incoming transmission from the Hegemony Council. Draxul braced himself for the inevitable censure. The holographic image of overarched Xel'Thar, supreme leader of the hegemony, appeared before him, The ancient Xel'Karn's exoskeleton bore the ceremonial markings of 5 centuries of rule. Fleet Commander, the Overarch's voice was unnervingly calm. Your failure is unprecedented. Overarch, I take full responsibility. Draxo began. The humans possess technology far beyond. Yes. Xel'Karn interrupted. That much is clear from your reports. But what concerns the Council is not just their technological capabilities, but what this reveals about their nature. Draxel's antennae twitched in confusion. Their nature, Overarch, consider Commander. They detected our surveillance years ago, but gave no indication. They developed revolutionary technology in absolute secrecy. They waited until we committed our forces before revealing their true capabilities. The Overarch's compound eyes gleamed. These are not the actions of a young, impulsive species. These are the calculated moves of a patient predator. As the implications sank in, Draxel felt something he had rarely experienced in his long military career. Genuine fear. The humans hadn't just defeated them militarily. They had outthought them, outmaneuvered them, and demonstrated a level of strategic patience that even the ancient Xel'Karn respected. Accept their terms, Xel'Karn ordered, and prepare a full psychological assessment of human behavior for the Council's review. We have much to reconsider. One standard year after the failed invasion, the observation post on Pluto's moon turned buzzed with activity. Intelligence Officer Veraxon, one of the few Xel'Karn permitted in the Sol system under the new treaty, meticulously documented the latest human developments. Another breakthrough in quantum engineering, he noted, recording details of a public announcement from the Mars Science Academy. Their fourth this cycle. His human liaison, Dr. Ishigamaguchi, smiled as she brought him a container of nutrient solution formulated for Xel'Karn physiology. Impressed, concerned, Veraxon admitted, your species' rate of technological advancement continues to accelerate. The hegemony analysts can't determine if there is an upper limit. Isha shrugged. We had a lot of catching up to do. For millennia, we were limited to one planet, fighting among ourselves. Meeting other species gave us perspective. And now? Veraxon asked, what drives humanity now that the immediate threat is gone? Curiosity, she replied simply. The desire to understand, to explore. The same impulses that helped us survive your invasion now push us outward. Across the solar system, humanity was indeed pushing outward. The Prometheus technology, originally developed for defense, had been adapted for peaceful applications. New colonies were being established throughout the system. The first interstellar mission, not just exploration probes, but an actual settlement expedition, was preparing to depart for Proxima Centauri. In diplomatic chambers throughout the galaxy, human representatives were establishing relationships with other species, many of whom had been subjugated by the Xel'Karn hegemony for generations. Knowledge of how Earth had repelled the invasion spread, inspiring both hope and caution. On the hegemony homeworld, the Council of Overarchs convened an extraordinary session to discuss the human question. For the first time in thousands of years, the hegemony faced a species that could not only resist assimilation, but potentially threaten their dominance. They've made contact with the Jraveri Collective, reported the Intelligence Overarch, and the Phylaxian Assembly. Both have historically been resistant to our influence. Are they forming a coalition against us? Asked another council member. Overarch Xel'Karn raised an appendage for silence. Not overtly, but they're sharing technology, establishing trade agreements. The humans are subtle. They speak of cooperation and mutual benefit, rather than resistance or rebellion. Which makes them all the more dangerous, concluded the military Overarch. Open rebellion can be crushed. This gradual realignment of power is harder to counter. On Earth, Admiral Tenzin Doherty stood on a platform overlooking the launch site of humanity's first true interstellar vessel, the Horizon. Unlike the crude exploration ships of previous decades, the Horizon incorporated all that humanity had learned from studying alien technology, enhanced by their own innovations. President Reyes joined him, watching as final preparations were made for the historic launch. The Xel'Karn are still watching us closely, Tenzin noted. Their observation post on Charon tracks everything we do. Let them watch, Reyes replied. Perhaps they'll learn something. They still don't understand why we spared their fleet, Tenzin said. Their cultural framework doesn't allow for mercy as a strategic choice. That's their limitation, not ours, the president said. We demonstrated we could destroy them, then chose not to. That sends a more powerful message than annihilation ever could. As the Horizon prepared for a launch, carrying 2,000 colonists toward humanity's first settlement among the stars, Fleet Commander Draxuel, now demoted and reassigned to historical analysis, completed his final report on the failed Sol campaign. "We surrounded them," he wrote in the official log. "We brought overwhelming force. We expected swift capitulation or futile resistance. Instead, we discovered a species that had been preparing for us in ways we couldn't imagine. They absorbed our attack, countered with precision, and showed restraint when victory was theirs." He paused, considering the implications for future generations of Xel'Karn who would study this defeat. The humans didn't just defeat our fleet. They changed the fundamental dynamics of galactic politics. Species that accepted hegemony rule for millennia now question our authority. Technologies we thought were theoretical are now being implemented across multiple systems. Draxuel's mandibles clicked in a gesture of deep resignation as he recorded his final words. "We surrounded them. Humans destroyed us, not through superior firepower, but through patience, innovation, and strategic vision. May those who follow learn from our failure. Never underestimate a species that turns disadvantage into opportunity, that transforms defensive technology into exploratory tools, that chooses diplomatic revolution over military annihilation when both options are available." Final log, Xel'Karn Command Ship Void Dominator. Fleet Commander Draxuel reporting. "May the Eternal Hive forgive our arrogance." With that, he transmitted the report to the Hegemony archives and turned his gaze toward the stars, wondering what new surprises the humans would unveil next.